that in one hand and my clicker in the other.
There you go.
All right, are we good? Perfect. So like Calvin mentioned, I'm Megan Delatte. I'm a field storage channel SA, so I help enable all of our channel partners based out in the Bay Area. So yeah, I'm going to be doing a Store Once overview. I'll talk about Catalyst, RMC, integrations with Store Once. I'll cover CloudBank on a little bit more of a deeper level. And then we'll do a short 5-minute demo that's already pre-recorded. I'm not as brave as those two guys doing live demos yet, so mine is already pre-recorded. So real quick, I just want to cover kind of the IT or hybrid IT data protection strategy that's going across the market right now. Doug touched on this earlier as well. The 3-2-1 strategy, right? So 3 copies of your data, 2 different types of media, or sometimes we like to say formats. So a production format and then a backup format covers that as well. And then lastly, 1 copy off-site. So just generally, what you can do is have your on-prem storage array hosting your primary data, send a backup to your backup appliance on-prem. That gives you 2 copies, 2 different medias, and then you have your 3rd copy off-site. Whether that is going to be on an off-site backup application, you can replicate from backup to backup, or off-site in the cloud, or potentially even offloaded to tape. So that's just general. So if we take a look at how HPE is kind of tackling the strategy, this is the layout that it looks like. So we have our 3PAR on our on-prem. That's going to be our primary storage array. I'll get more into detail as to why we're using 3PAR up here and not Nimble or anything else yet. Nimble will be coming very soon. But we have our 3PAR, which is going to store our primary data. We're going to be using HPE RMC, which is Recovery Manager Central, and I'll talk more in detail about that as well, in order to send backups over Catalyst to a Catalyst store in the Store Once. So right there, you have your on-prem data, 1 copy, your backup data on the Store Once, that's your 2nd copy in your 2nd format, and then we can go to the cloud using CloudBank from Store Once, and that would be your 3rd copy off-site. Now, of course, to tie it all together, at the bottom we have different HPE services that we offer to our customers to help them achieve the strategy that works best for them.
That's the point next we were talking about.
Yeah, point next, right? So I'm sure most of you have heard of HPE Store Once, right? Have y'all all been aware that just recently, I think October 1st, we came out with an entire new generation and we have a lot of updates? Great, so I will cover majority of those updates in this presentation just so that you're all aware. So we'll start off with just what is Store Once. It is a disk-based backup appliance. It can be deployed with hardware as a hardware appliance or a virtual appliance either on VMware or Hyper-V. The key selling features are the heavy deduplication and compression, and I think the marketing number is a minimum of like 20 to 1 that we get. We also have encryption features, remote replication features, and then a lot of application integrations with Catalyst and RMC that I'm going to talk about in a few slides. So the Store Once backup appliance is just a backup target for any ISV, or it can be partnered up with 3PAR using RMC. So that's that integration with a flat backup. And then lastly, it spans scales very large to very small. So the full portfolio can start off with a small virtual deployment of only 4 terabytes and can scale all the way up to the 5650, where you're going to see 1.7 petabytes local storage, and then you can get an additional 3.5 petabytes in the cloud using CloudBank storage. So if you put those 2 together, you can achieve a maximum of 4.2 petabytes of backup storage with Store Once. So looking at a little bit of the architecture of how Store Once is built, we have our Store Once deduplication engine, and then we also have 3 different types of targets. So we have VTL, NAS, and then Catalyst, which is going to be an object store. The Store Once deduplication engine is home developed, so we actually carry over 50 patents for it. It's all built on ProLiant DL380 Gen 10 software for the new generation of Store Once. And one of the selling features is that it's all HPE, so we aren't relying on OEMs or any third-party software. It's all built in-house, so you don't have to worry about any complications there. So taking a look at what's new in Gen 4, we have some new hardware features. Like I mentioned, the Gen 4 is going to be built on the Gen 10 ProLiant DL380s, and that's going to give you faster memory, more memory, faster processors. We also have added support for 8 terabyte drives in the larger range of the Store Onces. So in the previous generation, we had a 6600, which was a multi-node system. And that system could get up to 1.7 petabytes, and now with the 5650, even though it's not a multi-system, because we support these 8 terabyte drives, we're still able to reach that same capacity. We have some new I/O supports, so we're keeping up with market trends. We now support 32 gig fiber channel, as well as 10 and 25 gigabit Ethernet. We have some new expansion modules. We've changed how the roaming hot spares work. So in the previous generation, if a drive were to fail, the spare would take the place of the drive, rebuild the RAID, and then whenever you received a new drive, the spare wanted to go back to be a spare. So you had to rebuild the RAID again on the new drive. So now we have it to where once the spare replaces the drive, it builds the RAID, and when you get the replacement drive in, that becomes your new spare. So you don't have to rebuild that RAID twice. And then, of course, we have a pretty new bezel, which is super important, right? So switching over to kind of the OS improvements that we've made, we have a completely new interface. And one of the amazing features is we now allow federated management. So in a single pane of glass, you can now manage up to 100 Store Once appliances. So for large-scale VSA deployments or large enterprises, this kind of really consolidates the management. We have moved away from the legacy iBricks that we were working on, and now we're using a Linux XFS file system, and that kind of ties into the new management layer as well. We replaced what was tied to iBricks, which was Fusion Manager. We have automatic firmware upgrades now, so whenever you upgrade the OS, you no longer have to go and push all the firmware upgrades afterwards. It all automatically upgrades at one time, which is really nice. We also have automatic configuration data saving. It saves once every 24 hours, so in the case that you have to restore to a new Store Once, as long as you have the data from the Store Once, you're able to restore your entire configuration without really having to configure it. And then lastly, we have enhanced security. So one of the enhancements is that we have secure support logons. So if you log an issue with support or point next, you'll get a password for one of these logins and be able to work through the CLI with the support team to help you. And we also have a FIPS 140-2 level 1 approved. So looking at some of the overall product changes from Gen 3 to Gen 4, one is going to be a new data path for RMC, and so that's that Recovery Manager Central that I was talking about, and I'll explain how it's different from Gen 3. I think I have an entire slide dedicated just to that. We also have increased the capacity of the 5650. Like I mentioned, that's going to be taking the place of that multi-node system. And then we have VSAs. The VSA, since it can scale so small, it's going to replace that entry-level 3100 series. And on the next slide, we'll see Gen 3 compared to Gen 4, see the differences between them. And then lastly, we have a new license server manager that allows it to be a lot easier of a process whenever you're doing large-scale VSA deployments. So previously with VSA deployments, managing all the licenses for those VSAs were very difficult for some of our larger customers. And now it kind of acts just as a pool. You're able to spin up a VM VSA with however many terabytes you want, put it back down, and those licenses go right back to the server. Same thing with the Cloud Bank licenses as well as the encryption license. If you were to spin up a VSA and that VSA wanted to utilize Cloud Bank, it would go to that license server to see if there were any Cloud Bank licenses available and pull straight from there. So,
also allow you to renew the free license after 3 years, or is it still like tear down? I think you mentioned that.
the 1 terabyte free license VSA? I'm not sure about that. It's not a lifetime VSA, right? It's for just 1 year?
Well, Calvin, you were talking about, like, you used to get, what, a 3-year free license, but you couldn't go over a terabyte?
There's a free license, it's 1 terabyte, it's 3 years. I don't know, I know the answer.
You couldn't renew the license on it? I thought they were all perpetual.
Let me start that again since I wasn't on the mic. There's a free 1 terabyte that anybody can get. I'll try and find the URL and push it out there. I don't know what happens at the end of the 3 years. Yours is the NFR, is what you're talking about, right?
So basically, though, when I asked you a few months ago, you said that you couldn't put a new license, like a new free license, on an existing VSA, so you couldn't like relicense it for another 3 years. But you said that the new version of StoreOnce would allow you to do that, so that's what I was asking.
You remember my answers better than I
It's in Twitter. We can go back and look.
There's no in place outside.
Yeah.
IFS, or whatever it is, IXS.
What I'm saying though is this one. So
If you were to buy, or if you were to start the 1 terabyte free license today, how would that transition in 3 years?
We'll get that answered.
Yeah.
Kevin's watching the live stream. Kevin's watching the live stream. He's the tech marketing engineer for all this, and so I'm sure I will get an IM from him probably about 20 to 30 seconds from now, since there's a delay in the live stream. So.
Well, I do have a question with regards to licensing, however. Customers that currently are licensed for 3.x of the Store Virtual or Store DSA, StoreOnce DSA.
Yes.
Is there a process to upgrade those?
Licenses, not the appliance, but licenses.
So we can do fresh deployment.
Of a 4.10 instead of the 3.18.
If I would assume no. I would assume that you would have to purchase new licenses since it's technically an upgrade. So you wouldn't be able to really upgrade from a DL Gen 9 to a Gen 10 on a hardware basis. So I would assume the same thing.
If I have a support contract for 4 years or 3 years, I would think I should be able to. That's what my question becomes.
Okay.
you might only be able to get patches and stuff like that for the one that you have, though. I mean, that's not uncommon for a hardware platform.
But this is a VSA.
It's still a hardware platform, technically.
We'll get that answer too.
Yeah,
Please and thank
we'll
you.
get that answer to you. All right, so looking at the comparison between Gen 4 and Gen 3, at the bottom here we have the new Gen 4 rollout, and at the top is Gen 3. So I just want to point out, like I mentioned, that 3100 we no longer have. That's being replaced just by the virtual storage appliance. And on the high end as well, that 6600 multi-node is going away as well, being replaced by the 5650. As you can see, there's no capacity lost there. The 5650 is able to support the same amount of capacity, and it's also able to utilize Cloud Bank to get even more. Switching over from the iBricks file system to XFS, we will see a boost in performance. So I know that a lot of people are worried moving from the 6600 multi-node, where you can kind of cluster together those nodes to get a boost in performance. We're not supporting that anymore. We're just going to support the 6600 up until it's gone and moving on. So taking a look at what's new in the StoreOnce architecture, at the bottom, we now are on ProLiant Gen 10 hardware. We have the XFS file system, same unchanged deduplication engine. VTL, NAS, and Catalyst stays the same as well. We have new options for the fiber channel HPAs and the NICs. And then all of that's wrapped into a new management GUI. On the left-hand side, that's that new data path for RMC. So previously, 3PAR would actually have to talk to the RMC VM before going to the StoreOnce. Now it is a direct data path from 3PAR to StoreOnce. And I will dig into a little bit deeper in that in just a minute. So this is the new Store Once interface. Like true HPE fashion, we've gone with the circles, right? So you can see all of your data stores in wonderful little donuts, like we call them. One thing I do want to point out is right under System Dashboard at the top there, there's a sequence of letters and numbers. A lot of people like to think that that is the serial number of the Store Once system. It is not. It is the default host name. So we do recommend changing your host name, and your serial number is actually located on the right-hand side under System Information. So the reason that it's important you know where your serial number is because anytime you want to order licenses like Cloud Bank or encryption, you actually have to have that serial number handy. So don't give the wrong one. And then before we move on to our next section, have a list of some of the partners that we support. So there are a few that I would like to point out. One is Commvault. We partnered up with Commvault recently, and we have a lot of integrations with them. So they now support Catalyst, which is very new, and you can even point to a Catalyst store from within the Commvault management interface. Also, we partner with Veeam. Veeam supports Catalyst, but it does not support Catalyst copy at the moment, which is important to utilize Cloud Bank.
I won't talk about it like this.
But Veeam does have some really cool integrations on its own. They're able to do file level restores as well as instant VM recovery. So we are able with Veeam to spin up a VM on the Store Once system in the case of a DR situation. And then lastly, I want to point out, I know we have Micro Focus up there. I think earlier we were talking about how we sold off all of our software. So Micro Focus is our old software, right? And so that's where Data Protector is now. All right, so real quick, who all knows what Catalyst is? Okay, perfect. Well, for those of you that haven't heard of Catalyst yet, it is a protocol that was developed by HPE. It is an object store on the Store Once system, and it was developed to have really high performance backups, right? So one of the biggest features of Catalyst is that we're able to perform low bandwidth backups because we can do deduplication on the host side or on the backup server. So that way you're deduplicating all your data before you're ever sending it across the wire. At this time, Catalyst is the only interface that supports Cloud Bank because you're going to be going from object store on Store Once to object store in the cloud, making everything nice and simple. So I do want to talk about the Store Once Catalyst plugins. So these are going to be plugins for certain applications that we've integrated with. So it does plug in to where you're able to use the native backup applications that are built into the list of database applications up there. They leverage Catalyst and they give a couple of different performance enhancements. So the first one is that they increase deduplication. So with databases, a lot of them don't deduplicate very well to begin with. But with Catalyst, what ends up happening is Catalyst is able to analyze the data streams, and you're going to see better deduplication. I'm not going to say you're going to see amazing deduplication, but you're going to see better. We also increase the speed performance of these certain database applications because we're able to multi-stream the backup to a single Catalyst store. So you're able to see that performance increase by having multiple streams, but you don't lose any deduplication because we deduplicate on a store level. And then lastly, you will have increased availability of your server resources. And this is because of the way that we do backups. With Store Once and Catalyst, we do synthetic backups or synthetic full backups. And what that means is on the first time that you copy the data over, you will do a full backup. All your data will have to go over. But everything afterwards will only be the differential data. And I'll dig into that in just a little bit. And then the last feature of Catalyst plugins they don't cost anything. So if you have these applications and you have a store once, you can download these for free and start working with them. So moving on to HPE Recovery Manager Central. You'll hear me refer to that as RMC. I know that a lot of times HPE likes to use acronyms and nobody knows what we're talking about. So if you hear RMC, I'm talking about Recovery Manager Central. And before we move on, what Recovery Manager Central really is it integrates 3PAR and soon to be Nimble with Store Once, which gives us the speed of snapshots with the protection of backups. So I know I've heard some conversations that a snapshot isn't a backup, but if you move it to a backup appliance, it is, right? And so this RMC is going to show you how we move the snapshots over to a backup appliance in a very efficient way. So a few things with RMC. We do have, again, some application integrations with RMC, and they're all listed up there. And so what we allow it to do is, with RMC, you're able to take application consistent snapshots, right? So RMC talks to the primary storage array, prepares the volume that the database is sitting on, and then takes a snapshot. This makes it a lot easier to restore, a little bit more confident in your restores, and this also allows you to do the flat backup. So like I was talking, you're able to back up straight from 3PAR to Store Once without needing to go through media servers or the use of clients. So we also can transfer the control of the data protection to the hypervisor or the database admins. Since RMC is a very easy to use tool and it integrates so well with the applications, they're kind of more familiar with working with RMC rather than learning a new backup application. So that's a little tidbit of information there. RMC also can act as an extension of your primary storage. So snapshots are kind of, very needed in order to do a backup or in order to do a restore. If you're going to do the fastest restore possible, it would be from a snapshot on your primary storage array, right? So with RMC, you are able to manage the snapshots on the primary array, and you're also able to do a very efficient remote copy snap from 3PAR to 3PAR. And then lastly, we have common integrations and RESTful APIs with other backup applications as well. So if we look at the basic concepts, RMC was really invented for two purposes. The first is to do snapshots on the primary array. And so as you can see, 3PAR, it is doing snapshots and it's managing those snapshots. And then the second purpose is to send those snapshots onto the Store Once device in a very efficient manner. So in the previous RMC and Store Once, you had your RMC virtual machine appliance, and it would create a snapshot on the primary array, and whenever it was ready to back up that snapshot to Store Once, it actually had to go and have a little bump in the road going to the RMC virtual machine before going to the Store Once appliance. So it wasn't technically a flat backup. Release of RMC, we now have the Express Protect backup, which goes directly from 3PAR over to Store Once, and soon to be Nimble. So on the next release of RMC, which I think is coming sometime in early to mid 2019, then you'll see support for Nimble as well with this feature. So I know I've been saying RMC does things in a very efficient manner, so let me explain that a little bit. So there's two big pieces to it. So the first is it creates a synthetic full backup. So like I mentioned beforehand, the first full backup that you take is going to move all the data from the volume over to the Store Once appliance. So that one will take longer. But then every single backup after that is going to be more like an incremental backup. You're only going to be changing, or only going to be sending over the deltas. Now where this differs from an incremental backup process is on the back end, on the store once, we're putting those together as a full backup. So that whenever you need to restore, it's not restoring multiple incremental backups. You're only going to restore one full synthetic backup. The other really efficient piece of RMC is what we like to call double dip dedupe. Try and say that 10 times. So the first dip of dedupe is going to be on a snapshot level. So before we ever even send the snapshot over to the store once, we're going to compare it with the previous snapshot. We're going to dedupe between the snaps, and then we're going to only look at that unique data in the new snapshot and dedupe that unique data as well before we ever send it across the wire. So we're deduping between the snapshots, and then we're deduping among the single snapshot before we send it across. So this is done for the Express Protect, where we're going straight from 3PAR over to store once, and it's also done for the remote copy snaps. So if you wanted to have your snaps copied from one 3PAR to another, that way you had multiple restore points on multiple 3PARs, you can do this efficient manner as well. So are there any questions so far? Okay, wonderful. So these are some of the RMC 5 features that we have going on. We have Microsoft Exchange integration. We have Active Directory integration. SAP HANA, if you're familiar with that, we now support multi-tenant database containers. And at the bottom there is one thing I do want to point out. We now have integration with the 3PAR Store Serve Manager Central. So that's what SSMC stands for. We've integrated with them to where RMC shows up as an application in the menu. I'm actually going to show that in a demo at the end, to where a lot of the features that you would typically need to go to the RMC user interface, you can just do through managing your 3PAR. So really centralizing the management location. So this may overlap a little bit with the previous presentation on the cloud. I apologize in advance, but we'll go into some different use cases and hopefully a little bit more information from it. So what is Cloud Bank storage, right? All it really is utilizing store once appliance, and it's connecting it to an object store in the cloud for long-term retention and DR purposes, right? So it contains the efficiency of the deduplication and compression that has the appliance, or that the store once appliance has, which makes the replication to the cloud cost a lot less for our customers. Currently we support Amazon S3, Azure, and Scality, which Scality is that private cloud. And it is scalable, like you saw in the Gen 4 to Gen 3 mapping. It actually can give you 2 times the amount of local capacity of the store once you're using. So like I mentioned with that 5650, you get 1.7 petabytes on-prem, 3.5 petabytes in the cloud. So if we look at who or what supports Cloud Bank support today, we have RMC, which integrates with 3PAR and Store Once, so that supports Cloud Bank. We have Micro Focus Data Protector, right? So that previously was HPE Data Protector. Commvault is coming imminently. They may have even announced it today. I know it's been announced to a lot of people, so I don't think I'm breaking any confidentiality here. Also, I ran this slide deck by like 10 people before I came here, so we should be good. And then we also have Veritas Net Backup. So there is a little asterisk, right? You do have to have the OST plugin, but you have to have the OST plugin in order to just store to a Catalyst store. So if you're wanting to do Cloud Bank, you probably already have that, since you have to have Catalyst stores to do Cloud Bank. And then at the bottom, you can also use the Catalyst plugin with those 3 database applications and use their backup, their integrated backup with the Catalyst plugin to do Cloud Bank. So here's a little checklist. What do you need in order to do cloud-based storage? So the first is a store once appliance. That can be hardware-based or it could be a VSA. You need a Catalyst license, which all of the Gen 4 store once comes with the Catalyst license already built in. You need to have a Cloud Bank license and optionally a Cloud Bank detached license. And so the difference between those, if you have a Cloud Bank license, you're able to read and write to that Cloud Bank store in the cloud. What the detached license does is if you're ready to offload some of your data from Cloud Bank, but so let's say for long-term retention, but you don't need to write to it anymore, you just need to read it, that detached license will transfer your data into a read-only mode and free up the storage it was taking on your Cloud Bank, giving you back more licenses to use for newer data. So one thing, yes, the detached license and the Cloud Bank license are sold by the terabyte. One thing I do want to point out is if you go ahead and unattach a store, or I forgot what term they use, disattach or whatever, without a detached license, you have 60 days to realize if you really want that data or not, and then after 60 days, you'll have to deal with HPE support in order to get that data back. So I would highly recommend before you detach any storage in the cloud, make sure you have that detached license if you want to access it again. And then the last two things you need for Cloud Bank is some sort of cloud, right? So Azure, Amazon, or Scality. And then finally, what we talked about, either the ISV application that supports Catalyst copy, RMC, or a Catalyst plugin. So now we'll kind of transfer over and look at some of the different scenarios of Cloud Bank. So the first one is the setup of Cloud Bank, right? So you have your store once, and anytime you're dealing with Cloud Bank, you're gonna have two stores. So the first one is gonna be your Catalyst store that's gonna be local on the store once itself. And then the second store is gonna be your Cloud Bank store. And so what's gonna end up happening is your data protection software will go ahead and write to the Catalyst store locally on the store once. That's gonna give you awesome dedupe and compression. Once it's deduped and compressed and into the minimal format of data that it can be, it will then Catalyst copy over to the Cloud Bank. So I do think that there was a question earlier about, oh, can I just write straight to the cloud? It's going to stop through store once first so that you can see those maximized deduplication ratios before going off into the cloud, which allows, less space in the cloud means less money you're having to pay. So if we take a look at an optimized restore, earlier I mentioned the fastest restores from a snapshot on the primary array. The second fastest would be from a Catalyst store in a store once on-prem, so your local store once. But if that copy has expired, then you can pull it from the cloud. A full copy is sent to the cloud, although it is only a subset of the metadata. It's just enough metadata to get everything down from the cloud. So what an optimized restore would look like is we send out a GET request from the cloud. The Catalyst store on-prem and the Cloud Bank store's metadata will compare and contrast, and then you'll only pull the unique data that you need down from the cloud. So this is in the event that you have a backup that's somewhere in the cloud, but you still have your on-prem store once as well. So that's going to compare the data that you've already put through the store once. That way it's not pulling more data than it needs to or charging you more money, right? Question?
You might be answering it in the slide, so I'll wait.
Okay, so now we'll look at kind of a DR restore process. It's just a little bit different. There is no compare and contrast because in a DR situation, we're assuming that your store once was completely blown up, right? So with a DR situation, this is hitting a brand new store once box. It can either be a hardware store once or it can actually be spun up as a VM in the cloud with StoreOne's VSA. So you could restore completely in the cloud. But what it's going to do is you're going to set up your store once, you're going to set up an empty Catalyst store, and you're going to connect to your Cloud Bank. Your Cloud Bank is going to pull a GET request, and it's going to pull the full copy all the way down. So it will take a little bit longer, of course, but this is just for a DR scenario. At least your data is safe. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Perfect. And then the last one before we kind of move on to summary and demo is a special particular use case, which is multi-reader. So whenever you set up Cloud Bank, it is locked into that store once that you set it up in, except for cases of a DR scenario, right? So only that store once can read and write to the Cloud Bank. But if you had multiple locations that wanted to just read from cloud, they can connect that way. So there is multi-reader capabilities. So test and dev, if they wanted to pull a backup from the cloud and pull it onto their system and then run some tests on it, they're able to do that. They just aren't able to write to the cloud. So kind of in summary of everything that I've talked about so far. So store once, Catalyst, RMC, and Cloud Bank, showing the integration of all of that put together. So as you can see on the left-hand side, we have our primary storage, whether that's 3PAR or soon to be Nimble, right? Because we're assuming RMC integration up there. Or you have a third-party storage array and you're using an ISV. So you're taking that, you're using the Catalyst protocol to send a backup to a Catalyst store on the store once. That Catalyst store is then using Catalyst copy to go to Cloud Bank. And so what this really entails is for seamless cloud integration, right? Then we have all of the deduplication and compression taking place on the store once appliance itself. That's going to give you really efficient transfer up to the cloud. You don't have to pay for more than what you need. And then we also have disaster recovery capabilities. You can recover straight to a brand new store once. It doesn't have to be the same store once. And you're able to pull that data into a Catalyst copy or a Cloud Bank store, and then it will copy over to a Catalyst store on your new store once. And then optionally, with RMC integration, you are able to restore directly from the cloud to your 3PAR, which is what I'm about to show you in a video. So at this point, does anyone have any questions before I get into a very short video demo? No? All right, wonderful. So I'm going to sit for this one. Wait, what? No, I'm not doing it live. So this demo actually goes over the integration with 3PAR, RMC, and Cloud Bank all together in a quick 5-minute video. So you'll kind of see how easy it is to send a backup to the cloud and restore from it. So if we start at the 3PAR management console, we can see in the dropdown that there's an RMC section now. So like I mentioned, we have integrations with SSMC. RMC is now viewed as an application, and they have an option to view all your restore points. So if we click on that, here are some previous restore points. And we're going to go ahead and look at our virtual volumes. So in this particular video, I was going to say, is it big enough? I don't really know how to change it. In this particular video, the virtual volume's already been made. It's a 10 gigabit volume called, I think, Gartner Demo. And if we scroll over, we'll be able to see that 76%, that's where the mouse is showing, is already written. So there's 7.6 gigabytes of data actually on the volume. It's not just an empty volume. So we'll go ahead and edit that particular volume. By editing it, we're going to be able to add a backup policy to it. You could add the backup policy to it when you're creating the volume, but for the purposes of the video, we want it to show you how you would add a policy. So we'll go ahead and click that. Here you have all of your different policies you've created. We've created one for this particular demo that's going to take a snapshot of the volume on the 3PAR, send the snapshot to the local store once system, and then use Catalyst copy to copy that directly into the cloud, all back to back, right? So it's all going to happen in one fell swoop. We won't have to schedule multiple steps.
So these are crash consistent versus application consistent snapshots everywhere?
Yes, I believe so. If it was application consistent, we would be using a certain flavor of RMC. So since we're just using the RMC that's built into 3PAR, it's not necessarily saying that it's, you know, RMC Oracle or anything like that. If it was RMC Oracle, then we would be creating application consistent. So for this one, we're just going to go ahead and set the backup to occur in about 3 minutes. But again, this is a video, so it's going to be instant, right? So while the backup is going on, we can take a look at the StoreServe Management Console and kind of see what we're going to be expecting once the backup's completed. So if we go and look at the copies, we would expect to see a snapshot here, because this is the volume, right? So once we finish the backup, we would have one snapshot locally for this. And then if we go ahead and take a look at the different restore points of that particular volume, we should see 3 more additional restore points. One would be the local snapshot, one would be the store once Catalyst copy or Catalyst store, and then the third one would be the Catalyst Cloud Bank. So if we go ahead and move to the remote desktop section of the VM, of the host, we can see the volume is being presented as the F volume, and that there's 4 VM images located on the volume. So once the backup is complete, we'll go ahead, delete one of these VM images, and then restore it from CloudBank. So we can also look at the progress of the backup in Recovery Manager Central. So it also has its own user interface. It looks very similar to 3PAR's user interface. So here you can see that RMC is currently working on performing the backup. And we can also monitor the backup progress on the Store Once console as well. I do believe this is the previous management user interface, not the updated new one that I showed, but it's still the same features and functions. So as you can see, the local backup has about 10 megabytes of data, and currently it's going to underline the Cloud Bank store, and that only has a little bit of metadata in it so far. So this was while the backup was running. We were looking at all of the different tools to see the progress of the backup. So we came back once it was completed. And looking at the Store Once console, we can see 2 different stores. So the first one is going to be the one in the cloud. And I want to point out that in the cloud, there's 10.7 gigabytes of logical data, right? But only 1.4 gigabytes of actual written data. So that's due to the really efficient deduplication and compression. We're able to, save you a lot of money. You're not having to put all 10 terabytes up into the cloud. Or 10 gigabytes, sorry. And we also have the local backup as well, which is storing about 1.6 gigabytes of data. So if we go back to the SSMC, we can see the 3 different recovery points that we expected. So we have the local snapshot, the backup to Store Once, and then the cloud-based backup as well. And if we go and look at the copies, we can see that that volume now has a snapshot. So moving back to the host, we'll go ahead and delete one of the VMs. That way we can restore it from the cloud. So once we delete the VM, we're going to go and go back to our restore points. We'll find the one that's cloud-based. We'll click on it, and it'll take us to this page where we can go ahead and restore from it. So once you hit restore, there are 3 different options. You can restore to the parent volume, which is going to write over the parent volume, or you can restore as a snapshot to the parent volume. And then lastly, you can also create a new volume. So for this demo, we went ahead and chose snapshot because this will invoke the express restore so that only the different data blocks will be transferred over. And we'll go ahead and restore it. And if you click under actions, you can see that the task is being initiated. And if we look at our copies, we can see that now there was previously one local snapshot, and now another one is coming down, and it's going to be a read-write copy. And then you can also see the restore point. There's an extra restore point added here where the snapshot is now restoring from the cloud. So once that data transfer is complete, we'll go ahead and restore the VM. So at the Store Serve Manager Central, there's a new restore point, and it's going to be called Restore Backup One-Click Copy. So if we went ahead and we clicked that, we can go ahead and attach it to the host. There we go. So we'll go ahead and attach it. And we're going to attach it to the same host that the parent volume can see. That way we can easily just drag and drop the file. We can see that the task of attaching has started. So we'll go ahead and rescan on our host for any extra volumes. We see that it's presented. And we'll go ahead and bring it online. And now we see the original volume, which was the F drive, with only 3 VM images. And if we scroll down, we see that there's now another one that's going to be the restore from the cloud, and it has all 4 VM images. So we'll just go ahead and pull the missing one over to the original volume, wait for it to move all the data, and we've restored that VM from the cloud. So like I said, it was a simple and short demo presentation. But it really tied in all the things that I talked about in the presentation. So we talked about the 3-part integration with RMC. We used that majority of the time. And all of the back end was Store Once and Cloud Bank, which, you know, the simplicity of it is you didn't even really have to use it in order to do this.
The protection policy, is that all available via command line as well?
I believe so. For 3-part. Store Once, I know that in the updated Gen 4 Store Once, the only command line that they allow is that support. So for Store Once, it's going to not be anything command line based, but I believe you can still do command line interface on 3-par for anything.
Okay. Do you know about... Okay, never mind. Thank you.
All right. Well, that is all of my presentation. I finished a little under an hour, so I gave you some time back. And again, I apologize if I wasn't able to answer all your questions. I covered the entire storage portfolio, so diving really deep into one particular product is a little difficult. And you know, Kevin was planning on being here, but unfortunately he couldn't. So I will work with him. If y'all have any questions, do not hesitate to reach out to me. I will get you in contact with the correct person.